Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is all about health and safety. Now, I know that may seem a bit like a Debbie Downer or a bit boring, but health and safety is really, really important when it comes to paranormal investigating. We love investigating. We love looking at possible different types of paranormal phenomena and all sorts of things. Doesn't mean that we should try and encourage ourselves to become possibly the paranormal. So if you are watching this live, by all means, use the comments section as in all is well, and you can see me as well as we go through this particular topic for this week as well. Thank you to the person who has the patience to wait long enough for me to get to this particular topic. And also, if you're watching the replay, I also welcome you as well, all the usual great peeps that tune on in afterwards, even if they can't watch the live one too. Now, I noticed that a couple of people already commented so far, and I noticed that was quite interesting because, hello, Nicole, how good. We had Mel who said that she finds that health and safety is about comforting shoes for cold nights and a go-to for hot hands as well. So I can't ignore that. We're in almost the middle of winter here in Australia, so I think that's pretty good advice. So good to see you, Nicole, as well. Also, if you have your own tips that you would like to share as well, so things that you or your team or as an independent investigator that you've actually done in the past that's kept you safe, or that you usually do as a part of like a procedure that you do with every investigation. Hi, Vicky, how are you? Hey, Shane, good to see you here too, mate. Yeah, share them in the comments section. So as we know, if you're watching this on Facebook or even on YouTube as well, use the really good when it comes to investigating from a health and safety perspective. Also, as well, if you want to submit your own questions, if there's things that are bugging you, if there's a question you're not really sure how to answer, if you've come across a situation that's a bit grey, if you've seen something or experienced something you want someone to shed some light on or a different opinion, I'm your girl. Send it through to accessparanormal@gmail.com and I'll put it in for a week for I Want to Know. And as again, you know, shared knowledge is the best way in which we all move forward. So it's very, very inclusive as well. So not just from my perspective, but from other people's perspective as well. So that's good. So, okay, first point I will mention is that, and this is fairly obvious. I think Sarah from Paranormal X-Files actually good. Now, no, again, it may seem a bit Debbie Downer about it all, but trust me, it's really, really, really valuable. I'm quite lucky because for my usual job, I have to have a first aid certificate, which is great because that usually means that obviously work will pay for me to go and have the training. So if you're in a particular job that requires you to, or you think it's highly likely for you to have a first aid certificate, highly recommend that you look at trying to get one. Really fascinating, very handy to have. As we know, it may not necessarily be something you would use just on a sort of a public location if you're out somewhere in a sort of a remote area, but also if you're in a private case as well, it's really handy to have too. So highly recommend it. Get a first aid certificate if you can, and even if not, even having a couple of members of your team, even if not all of you, can actually do that. Second thing will be a mental health first aid certificate. Now, I know you've heard me bleat on about this before in the past, but I highly, highly again recommend it as well. And you can actually be certified to help somebody who's having a mental health crisis. Again, I highly recommend it for people who have tours or take investigation groups through like public through particular locations. Reason being is that if somebody might actually see something, they might have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, and you've got the tools to know how to help them out until their friends or family arrive if it gets to that particular point. So really, really handy to have. Yes, as you know, Karen said there, absolutely first aid kit in your car. Really, really good advice, not just actually having the certificate, but also the first aid kit itself. We will be talking about that a bit later. But yeah, absolutely great advice there, Karen, completely. So, of course, first aid, mental health first aid, really, really handy. Another tip as well, never go on your own. Now, I am an independent paranormal investigator. A lot of people think that means you investigate on your own. you kind of do, but not physically on your own. So highly recommend, if you do investigate, you must always have at least one person with you from not just a safety perspective, so you know where each other are, but also from the possibility of something actually happening to you, or you witness something, you've actually got someone else there that can help verify that as well, where you were. But more importantly, it is definitely from a health and safety perspective. And we've also sometimes seen in the news there have been a couple of people that have gone into places that have been in a group and have still managed to hurt themselves and get themselves into some serious trouble. So you want to minimize that as much as possible. By all means, make sure that you actually don't investigate completely on your own in any way, shape or form. We're going to, as I said, we want to become alive and continue alive. We don't want to become the paranormal. And I highly encourage it, because I think there are a couple of groups that may not necessarily do this, but I highly recommend that you do a site walk. If you can do a site walk of a location. Now, of course, it's different to what it would be in a private residential to a public case or a historical location. It's more the fact of the private cases that you would probably be wanting to have that kind of access. Public ones, if you're with a good team, if you're with a good group that are running events at a location, they will actually tell you of the hazards before you even head out. So that kind of work's already done for you. But it's actually when you're in your private cases that you're going to want to see where the hazards are. And you could be investigating a house that is brand new, beautiful, great furniture, but you want to see where the stairs are, where the couch is, where certain tables are, because in the nighttime, you're in the dark, you're not going to see it. So even from that perspective, it's really, really important as well. Hi, Kaz. We're so glad you could join. So yeah, that's the other thing too. Make sure, if you can, do a site walk so you can actually see the hazards during the day. Make notes of them. So at nighttime, you know that everyone's going to kill like. Also, if you are investigating and you have a low immune system, or you might have an autoimmune disease, keep that in mind with some of the locations that some groups can go into. I know there's some places I've been into. Again, I've always had permission sought before going in. They're not the best structurally sound. They are safe enough to be in, but they haven't been inhabited by people who had the upkeep for a long time. And with that being the case comes risks as well. So I know a couple of people, as I said, I've investigated with in the past that do have autoimmune disease. So there's just keeping that in mind. If you do have a compromised immune system, going into some environments that some people might be all right with may not be all right for you. So keep that in mind. As much as we love investigating, it's not worth getting sick over. On the back of that as well, a strong allergy to dust or pollen or anything like that, sort of anything in an environment that can cause you to be unwell, let your team members know that, or somebody around with you at the time while you're investigating. So, and of course, as well, if you've got medication for anything like that you do need to take, bring that with you too, and lots of it just in case. So I know some people can be in dusty places, they can be asthmatic, and the dust can really affect them. So making sure your Ventolins with you, things like that. But if you're in an investigation group and you investigate together a fair bit, you know each other a fair lot, then you're aware of some of the allergies and the ailments that some of the team members may have. So it's always good to at least let some people know what you've actually got when you go out and investigate locations. Also, if you are in one of those interesting spots where it is an abandoned place and it's not in the best upkeep in its recent years, wash your clothes after the investigation. I know it sounds a really bit dumb to have to mention that, but say, for instance, when I investigated Chernobyl, I specifically bought shoes to investigate with on that day and then throw them out. Now, you don't have to go to that extreme, but I'm pretty sure the chances of actually walking on radioactive soil is pretty small considering where you may be going to investigate. So, obviously I would recommend, if you can, washing your jeans and pants is probably, if out of anything, would be the one place that you would wash first and foremost, because of the dust that you might kick up and the types of things you might tread yourself into and might kind of kick up a little bit. Make sure that if anything, you do wash the pants or jeans or anything that you've worn from the waist down as well. I know that some investigators, if it's a really bad place, it's not a good thing to do. If it's a very thin covering, you want to make sure that you're protected as much as possible. Also, keep in mind that we have, in Australia, we've got possums, we've got, we've got snakes and spiders. That's okay. Everybody overseas, we still survive. I hardly ever see any of them out onto bushland. We've got snakes, spiders, things like that. Possums, like I mentioned before. I know in America they've got raccoons, birds, all types of different types of birds and wildlife. We need to be careful where as much as we can. That's why site walks during the day are really, really good. Also, not necessarily just the fact of startling animals and insects and reptiles and making them react and then possibly attacking you in some way. Presence that they leave behind is that stuff that they do leave behind can actually be quite toxic, particularly bird poop. I know there's a Parramatta jail here in Sydney that there's one building they just won't let anyone in because the floor is like that thick with pigeon leftover. That's fine. They can have that. That's fine with me. I don't mind not investigating that particular building at all. So keep that in mind. There's some sections that you won't be able to go into. Quite happy with that. Rather stay alive and not die from toxic fumes from what came out of a pigeon 30 years ago. Also, a couple of things to keep in mind, not just in a first aid kit, if you can carry bin bags with you. So something might be there that you might need to remove. That's something that you definitely know is just needs to be put out of the way, sort of moved out of the way. You might need to throw it out. Some of the locations I've investigated over the years have had remnants of people that have lived there as a squatter. And they've lived there illegally, but they've obviously left some things behind, and you don't really want to be either walking in or around that. So if there's a chance that you can, taking out and removing it, so make sure everybody's safe in that regard. I know that for myself, I carry hand sanitizer. Again, it's a no-brainer. You might come across something. Hand sanitizer is awesome. It's another great way to keep yourself hygienically safe. Plastic gloves, dust masks as well. We were wearing them all across Europe because of the kind of locations we were going into as well. I do have plastic gloves in my handbag, so I've got that. A dust mask and a torch, and I'm sure if I was ever pulled over by the police, they'll be like, what kind of party are you going to? But it's not. It's actually just so I can be safe. And I've got stuff with me, and I'm often on the fly and going to different places when I need to. So it's handy to have as well. Also, anaesthetic spray if you have that too. That's just a really quick one, or like a Benadryl or something. Good for small cuts. If you've got a bigger wound, then there's a whole different process that goes into making sure that wound is going to be fine and safe as well. And if you want to take it a next step further, and this also depends a lot on the type of environment you're in and also the type of phenomena that's being reported, having a carbon monoxide detector. Now, again, that's if you're going into a location that people have often reported headaches and feeling nauseated and are just in that building, and then once they're out, they're not feeling so bad, if at all. Sometimes it's nice to verify that in some way, or more importantly, make sure it keeps you and your team safe, because you don't want to be in an environment where there is carbon monoxide for too long. So it's not good. So that's another thing as well. So a couple of things to think about, a couple of things to add to your list if you have already got one again. I love Kaz, dirtier the better. This is interesting. Great question. Do you need insurance for private investigations? Yes, you do need insurance for private investigations. Great question. The reason being is that when you go into a private home, there is the possibility, because we investigate in the dark generally, it's the same as if you'd be in a business. So if you were to damage something or knock something over that's very valuable, you can actually possibly do and/or residential case as well. So insurance will be able to cover both situations. It's any property or business, you should be able to have cover for both. So if you do have public liability insurance, definitely here in Australia, I'm pretty sure it's elsewhere around the world, it will cover you for either locations for that. But great question. Great question, actually. Thank you for that. Cool. So if anyone else has any other tips, like I said, use the comment section below, and let us know what's the stuff that you guys do before you go out or while you're out and investigating and you take with you. That's really, really helped. Thanks so much for watching. Until next week.